Hello and welcome to News Central TV. My name is Mazino Appeal. The top stories this hour. U.S. denies claims of funding Boko Haram through USAID as Nigerian Senate moves to grill service chiefs on allegations. And 3 dead, 50 injured in Zamfara market explosion. And South Africa hosts foreign ministers meeting in Nasrec, Johannesburg. Details coming up now. Now let's begin with security matters, where the United States has categorically denied allegations that its aid agency USAID is funding Boko Haram or any other terrorist group in Nigeria. Now, speaking after a meeting with the Nigeria Governors Forum in Abuja, U.S. Ambassador Richard Mills dismissed the claim, stating that there is no evidence to support such allegations. Mills reaffirmed that if any misuse of U.S. aid were discovered, it will be thoroughly investigated in partnership with Nigerian authorities. He also highlighted Washington's strong opposition to Boko Haram, which has been officially designated a foreign terrorist organization since 2013. The U.S. denial comes after Congressman Scott Perry accused USAID of indirectly funding terror groups. Now, let's also tell you that the National Emergency Management Agency has confirmed that 3 people lost their lives in an explosion that triggered a massive fire at Talata Mafara Central Market in Zamfara State. The incident, which occurred on Tuesday, left dozens injured. In a statement posted on X on Wednesday, NEMA reported that 50 people sustained varying degrees of injuries, with 46 currently receiving treatment in hospital. The agency said its emergency response team had been deployed to assess the situation. Now, in a similar incident earlier this month, at least 17 students were killed and another 17 injured in a fire outbreak at an Almajiri school in Kara Namoda local government area. To politics now. The All Progressives Congress in Osun State has announced its withdrawal from the local government elections scheduled for Saturday, 22nd February. The decision comes in response to a Court of Appeal ruling on 10th of February, which reinstated the party's previously elected chairman and councillors, effectively nullifying the need for fresh elections. In a withdrawal letter addressed to the Secretary of the State Independent Electoral Commission, the APC formally declared its non-participation. The letter reaffirmed that the party sees no justification for the elections in light of the court's verdict. And in the meantime, the federal government says that despite the Supreme Court outlawing the illegal removal of democratically elected local government chairmen, some states' governors have flagrantly ignored the ruling and continue to engage in the practice. The Attorney General of the Federation, during the Nigeria Bar Association's State of the Nation discourse held in the nation's capital, says that the action can be likened to a treasonable offense. Our correspondent Joshua Imarai here reports.
The Supreme Court of Nigeria's ruling granting local government councils financial autonomy has continued to generate controversy among legal practitioners and government officials alike. The mode of disbursement and transfer of allocation to local government has also led to subsequent legal obstacles. In a bid to address this, the Nigerian Bar Association convened the State of the Nation discourse in Abuja, bringing together several government officials, representative of Local Government Chairman Association, and the Attorneys General of some state.
We have therefore decided to convoke this discourse, and we are not taking any position as an association. I do not pretend to know what each of the speakers here will say. And like I said, I do not hold a particular position, but that may not be totally true. I hold the position that there must be democracy at the local government. I hold the position that all tiers of government must allow the local government to breathe. And I hold the position that the Constitution must be allowed to work.
The Attorney General of the Federation, who was represented at the event, condemned the action of some state governors who have continued to illegally remove democratically elected local government chairmen from office.
It is, however, imperative to state that despite the judgment of the Supreme Court, outlawing the illegal removal of democratically elected local government councils by state governors. It is quite unfortunate that few states have continued to flagrantly carry on with this illegality. Let me state in unequivocal terms that this act is tantamount to treason and must be treated as such. Now, while it is true that Section 308 of the Constitution grants the governor immunity from prosecution, I wish to be clear that this flagrant disobedience to Supreme Court judgment will have unpleasant consequences for the state as a whole, should it persist.
Stakeholders at this event say that for the Supreme Court ruling on local government autonomy to be effectively implemented, Nigeria's constitution must be amended to align with the recent judgment. They say that only then can the Supreme Court ruling on local government autonomy stand without legal obstacles. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarayi.
Now, let's also tell you that the Central Bank of Nigeria's 299th Monetary Policy Committee meeting held on the 20th of February 2025 has decided to maintain the current monetary stance. The monetary policy rate, the MPR, was retained at 27.5%, while the cash reserve ratio remains unchanged at 50% for deposits. That's for deposit money banks, and 16% for merchant banks. Additionally, the liquidity ratio was left at 30%, and the asymmetric corridor around the MPR continued to be set at plus 500/ minus 100 basis points. The decision reflects a cautious approach amid ongoing economic uncertainties. Now, to discuss this, we are joined by Principal Partner Woodridge and Scott Consultant Segun Shopita, who is here with us at News Central. Segun, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
It's a pleasure.
Now, so did this MPR announcement meet your expectations? Let's start from your personal view.
No, I mean, the expectations were mixed because, you know, the MPR decision is meant to be based primarily on inflation numbers, you know, from the MBS. And the reason that this MPC meeting has been delayed this long is because they were waiting for the MBS, you know, inflation numbers. And with inflation having shaved up 1,000 basis points, all expectations became uncertain. You know, without that intervention, we would have said we would expect the MPC to hold or increase MPR marginally. But with inflation having come down by 1,000 basis points, the natural expectation would have been that the MPR would have to reduce to drive growth, you know. But we all know that inflation coming down to 24% is a result of rebasing, not because inflation itself has reduced. So the MPC decision at the moment is, I don't think they had any other option. I think the only thing they could do was hold, and then they would have to go back to the drawing board and determine how to respond to this rather unusual, if not unprecedented situation.
Unusual and unprecedented indeed. Now, how might the unchanged high CRR levels for both deposit money banks and also merchant banks affect credit availability and economic growth?
Look, the reality is that inflation, you know, from the numbers that analysts have done and other observers, you know, of the economy have done, inflation has slowed down, in truth. It hasn't, you know, we're not seeing a reduction in prices, actually, but prices are no longer growing as quickly, as fast as they used to. And therefore, the next course of action for the CBN should have been to try and begin to stimulate growth. So we would have thought that with the holding of liquidity ratio and all the other numbers at their previous levels, hopefully that would mean that the banks at least will no longer be losing further liquidity, and therefore will still continue to trade, you know, when I say trade, I mean run financial transactions at the level that they currently are doing. But the truth is, we probably will need to see more than that for the economy to begin to kickstart itself again and for us to see the kind of growth that the president has said we will see.
Now, in tangible terms, can you explain when you mean stimulate growth? In what forms exactly?
Look, the MPC in particular, you know, the monetary policy authorities they are always playing a balancing act between trying to temper and tame inflation and stimulate growth within the economy. And the instrument that they use primarily is the MPR. And then with all the other ratios, the liquidity ratio, the cash reserve ratio, the asymmetric corridor, all of those things are complementary policies to help the MPR achieve that balancing act between driving and stimulating growth or holding inflation in control. So in a situation where you see that inflation has actually been reducing and you are gaining some control over, consumer prices going up, what you then want to see is that you want to see manufacturers producing more goods, the consumers having more money in their pockets to buy those goods, investors pushing more money into the manufacturing sector and the productive sector because sales are booming. So what all of that should result in is that the banking and financial system should have more money to drive all of those activities. So if the banks have more liquidity and can lend at lower rates, then you should see growth, especially in the real sector. Of course, the services sector also relies on bank borrowing to drive the activity. So the entire economy should benefit from the banks having more liquidity to provide as loans, to borrowers, and those loans also being available at lower rates because MPR is no longer rising. So if you do that, then growth will be a natural consequence, and that's the balancing act that the CBN always tends to find itself having to play.
Well, Segun, as academic as you put it, it sounds like a glimmer of hope. But with the liquidity ratio left at 30%, is the banking sector adequately cushioned against potential shocks? Or could this decision limit their capacity to support a dynamic economy?
No, I think that in truth, look, unfortunately, and I'm going to say this, and it's important that we understand this, because of the rebasing that has happened, we now have a situation on our hands where we've got inflation numbers that is data. And then we've got inflation in reality and in truth, right? So if we look at the inflation reality, then the cash reserve ratio that we have today is necessary. We have to limit liquidity within the system to tame inflation further. The problem is that the inflation numbers from the data, the official data agency of the country, says that inflation has come down. So cash reserve ratio actually should be coming down so that we can release more money into the banks, so that the banks can drive, growth within the economy. So look, it's a very confusing situation, and I think that the central bank has its work cut out for it with dealing with the reality and dealing with what the numbers are now saying, in the next MPC meeting.
All right then. Well, thank you very much, Segun. Thank you for lending us your afternoon. We look forward to having more on this from you. But we are also going to be entertaining another guest. But first, let's take a break and we'll be back. And you're welcome back. We now return to a previous story on the Osun State Local Government Autonomy. And to help us put perspective to this, we're joined by legal practitioner Tunji Abdulhamid. Mr. Abdulhamid, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon on the news. Now, Mr. Tunji, I'm hoping that you can hear us. I'm going to go ahead and ask my first question. So,
thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Tunji Abdulhamid, from a legal standpoint, how valid is the argument that governors can choose to ignore a Supreme Court ruling on local government autonomy? Could there be any constitutional justification for their defiance?
No, the governors cannot choose to ignore the local government of autonomy because it's governed by the Constitution. The Constitution allows them to have that autonomy. Section 7 of the Constitution provides so, and that there must be democratically elected local government. And that was why we have the Supreme Court judgment that says the payment should be paid directly to the local government. That's part of the autonomy of the local government. So no governor has any power to circumvent the Constitution and say that he can do so by way. Although there are some governors that are taking steps. For me, that step is covered by law. Particularly like a state where, I think it's Imo State or which states, whereby they pass a law to the effect that local government should contribute to the development of the state. Yes, Section 7, Section 3 of the Constitution also allows local government to participate in the economic development of the state. So if in that regard, they have asked to make contribution, yes, that would be proper. But that money is for the development of the state, not to go to the governor account directly for the purpose of the governor's spending. Okay, there is no justification under our law.
All right, then.
That governors should circumvent local government administration, democratic administration.
And what legal consequences can governors face for defying a Supreme Court ruling? Are there any mechanisms in place for enforcement, or
No, we are just. It's not even the Supreme Court ruling. We're just talking about Supreme Court ruling. It's there in the Constitution. The Supreme Court only affirmed the provision of the Constitution. It's not even the ruling. It's the Constitution. The Supreme Court are even they are regulated by the Constitution as well, and they only affirmed the provision of the Constitution that local governments should be given their allocation directly. Even that law, which allows state and local government to have joint accounts, did not say they should collect the money for the purpose of spending. They just should collect it and share it back to the local government. But unfortunately, we have governors in our state whereby they will collect the money and then they do whatever they want to do with it. And that's what the Supreme Court has said, that, look, governor, you have no power to retain this money into your own account. When you collect this money, you give it to them. But now, they even say pay it directly to them. So paying directly to local government, there's no way the governor can circumvent that, because governors are not the one paying it. They be paid directly from the CBN or wherever that's coming from. So there's no way they can corner that kind of money. So if that money thereafter is given to the governor, that will not be governor's fault. That will be the fault of the local government chairman. So we cannot say because a local government has decided to share or give his money to the state governor, we will be blaming the state governor for that. No, the local government chairman has the responsibility of accounting for every money that goes into his account.
Now, let's talk about the delineation between executive and judiciary in Nigeria here. How does the defiance of the Supreme Court ruling by the state governors affect the separation of powers between the executive and judiciary? Does this raise concerns about the independence of the judiciary?
How do I do what?
Does it raise any concerns about the independence of the judiciary?
What is that? What is that particular question you are?
I'm asking about the defiance of the Supreme Court ruling by the state governors. How does it affect the separation of powers between executive and judiciary?
It does not at all. Everybody has his role. The judiciary has the responsibility of interpreting the law, and what they have done is to interpret the law, and they say that this is the law. So they have done what is given to them under the Constitution. Section 6 allows give the power to determine issue and interpret issue on the Supreme Court. So they doing that job does not mean they are interfering. They are not directing them. They are merely interpreting what the Constitution provides.
All right, Mr. Tunji, thank you very much.
So
thank you very much for your expert views, Mr. Tunji Abdulhamid.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
All right, then. Moving on, the Lagos State House of Assembly has dismissed claims that 27 lawmakers plan to defect from the All Progressives Congress to the Labour Party. Now, Chairman of the House Committee on Information, Ogundigbe Olukayode, calls the reports false, urging the public to disregard them. He insisted the Assembly remains united under the APC, blaming agents of destabilization for spreading misinformation. The rumor comes amid a leadership crisis following the removal of former Speaker Mudashiru Obasa and the election of Mojisola Meranda. Tensions escalated when security forces stormed the Assembly, briefly blocking Miranda's access before lawmakers reaffirmed their support for her. And the federal government is seeking $81 billion in compensation from Binance Holding Limited over allegations economic losses linked to its operation in Nigeria. The government claimed that Binance deliberately operated in secrecy despite having a significant economic presence in Nigeria. The suit was brought before Inyang Eko of the Federal High Court in Abuja on February 11th. The federal government alleged that the company violated several financial and tax regulations, including the Companies Income Tax Act, the Federal Inland Revenue Service Act 2007, the Central Bank of Nigeria's regulatory framework for mobile money services, and the Significant Economic Presence Order, which applies to foreign companies earning at least 25 million naira annually from digital services in Nigeria. And to make sense of this, we are joined by economic analyst Olusegun Okunade. Olusegun, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
And I'm great to be here this afternoon.
Fantastic. Now, can you please break down how Binance alleged tax evasion might affect Nigeria's overall economic health?
Thank you very much. I want to start by first stating that the issue between FRS and Binance to some of us is still confusing. Don't forget that Binance is actually in the business of cryptocurrency, and we all know that the CBN has actually regulated that such operations should not be obtainable in the country. I think that was during Emefiele, and up till now, I don't think we have an extant law for the practice of cryptocurrency. That is one on the first side. But I know that the Finance Act of 2022 came up to say some of these tangible assets will definitely be taxed under the capital gain tax. And I asked myself, how do we go about taxing what the law have not actually enacted? Because if you ask me, the business of cryptocurrency is not operational, and that's why Binance is really not being registered as a company in Nigeria, to the best of my knowledge. So I feel the government needs to balance the act that we have in terms of the operation of cryptocurrency as a business, and also give leeway for FIRS to be able to tax this. I think this is the disconnect I feel is happening. Otherwise, Binance as an organization should have been a registered company, and these losses should have been averted if the law that we have operational give room for the operation of cryptocurrency in Nigeria.
Now, given that the lawsuit mentions economic losses, how would you evaluate the potential long-term effect on investor confidence in cryptocurrency as they operate in Nigeria?
Yeah, well, the operation of cryptocurrency, as I speak, to the best of my knowledge, is still not something that is being given that legal backing. And what do I mean? You know the issues that happened during the last administration, saying that no financial institution, and up till now, I have not heard of any financial institution carrying out this particular operation. So I feel that we need to first make it a legal operation where we can pick up organizations that are actually carrying this out, being registered as a company. Because I asked myself, is Binance registered to carry out this operation in Nigeria? To the best of my knowledge, I don't think that is obtainable. And if that must be, we must have a law to back the operation of this particular thing so that we can avert these particular losses that we are seeing economically. $81 billion on the part of just one organization, which is Binance. A lot of other companies are carrying out these particular cryptocurrency businesses. How much are we following through to have it so that we can have the revenue that is meant for us to come in place, and we can enjoy the dividend of some of these things for our citizens?
So let's discuss the impact of Binance in Nigeria, them evading taxes and all the allegations against them. What are the typical economic effects on a nation's economy when large firms evade taxes?
It has great impact on them, because what that implies is that you will be shortchanging the government, and the revenue that is expected of them to make in developing the activities in Nigeria, in fulfilling the social contract, will definitely be cut short. So tax evasion is not something that is actually, it's more a criminal offense, if you ask me, as enacted in the law, and it's something that is not really being encouraged for people to actually carry out. So I would say that we should do what is needful. One, there are more organizations that are carrying out this particular business of crypto that we can carve into the tax net for us to have the necessary revenue that is expected. You know, this aspect of we funding our budget with borrowing can definitely be taken care of if some of these taxes that are actually being evaded are into the coffers of the government, and that will definitely give economic growth and bring more stability even for us as a nation.
So with this issue now, are we saying that Binance tangibly affected the economy of Nigeria, or is this being, are they going through this just because it's going to serve as deterrent for other companies?
Yeah, they are actually impacting on the business of the country. And if we can follow this through, having all the laws put together, I believe it will serve as deterrent, and more of people carrying out this business that are not yet in the tax net of the Federal Inland Revenue can be brought to justice, and we can have more revenue to others. You can imagine if you have like 2 or 3 more organizations that have 50% of what Binance is giving to us in the cryptocurrency business, that will be talking of over 120, 130 billion dollars into the coffers of the government. And that on its own can take care of the shortfall that we're actually experiencing when it comes to funding of our budget on infrastructure development. And tomorrow, together, we can grow the economy and every citizen can enjoy the benefit of what we have as democracy.
Mr. Okunade, I want to say thank you very much for joining us this afternoon on the news.
It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon.
Indeed. Former Nigerian military president Ibrahim Babangida has unveiled his long-awaited autobiography, A Journey in Service, at the Congress Hall of the Transcorp Hilton Hotel in Abuja. The event, held on Tuesday, comes 32 years after Babangida left office. Now, the high-profile launch attracted several dignitaries, including President Bola Tinubu and former presidents Olusegun Obasanjo, Yakubu Gowon, Abdulsalami Abubakar, and Goodluck Jonathan. The event was chaired by Obasanjo, while the keynote address was delivered by former President of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo. Former Vice President Yemi Osinbajo reviewed Babangida's memoir. Now, also speaking, the celebrator took the stand to set some records straight. We'll bring you all of that detail subsequently. Moving on now, 14 Filipinos have been arraigned before a federal high court on charges of cyber terrorism and internet fraud. The Lagos Zonal Directorate of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, which brought the case against them, alleged that the suspects were part of a 792-member syndicate involved in cryptocurrency investment scams and romance fraud. They were arrested on the 10th of December 2024. The defendants face separate charges including cybercrimes, cyber terrorism, impersonation, identity theft, and possession of fraudulent documents. All 14 pleaded not guilty and were remanded in a correctional facility. Now, Justice Kakaki adjourned the trial to 13th of March 2025. And back to security matters now. Gunmen have abducted Eniola Ojajuni, the national president of the Afenifere Youth Council in Abuja. According to a statement by the council's national secretary, Abiodun Aderohumo, the incident occurred on Monday. Aderohumo also revealed that the abductors are demanding a 100 million naira ransom for Ojajuni for her release. The group has called on the federal government and security agency to act swiftly to secure his return, while urging Nigerians with any useful information to assist. In the meantime, the federal government has handed 59 kidnapped citizens back to their families. The National Security Advisor, during the handover ceremony in Abuja, says that their rescue is proof of government's commitment to tackle kidnappings and banditry. Here, Amadine Uyi reports.
It was yet another ceremony to hand over kidnapped victims to the Kaduna State government. The National Security Advisor says that the victims were kidnapped by bandits, but their freedom has been secured through a joint collaboration with the nation's security agencies.
Yet again today, we have just received those who are rescued from captivity as a result of kidnapping by bandits. They are going back to their homes. You have seen them. It has been the case. Thousands and thousands of people have got grace, and the work of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu have been able to secure their freedom, and they are going back.
The NSA says that this is proof of government's determination to restore peace back to troubled areas and ensure that citizens can go about their normal businesses. Others presidents say their rescue is evidence of government matching its words with action.
We are restoring order. We are bringing justice. We are bringing back peace to our country. About 59 or so people today. Last week, another number like that. And thousands, and it's ongoing across the country. And it is also a joint operations of all those who are in charge or in the forefront of fighting to keep us safe in our country.
This is the second time you are coming here to receive freed captives. The last time was over 40, and you can practically see that we have 58 before you now.
Okay, some of them have been with the bandits for about 4 months. Different periods in between, but the most period has been 4 months. And based on intelligence that we've been collecting, the NSA directed we tie up with one division Nigerian Army, who is the lead in Kaduna, to conduct operations within the area which we've identified to rescue these people. One division was the lead in this operation.
They also pledged that the action is a warning to bandits and kidnappers, saying the cooperation of security agencies will bring an end to kidnapping.
This is just one step, and I believe as we continue to work, more steps and more results will be delivered, which will be evident to all.
The victims were rescued along the Abuja-Kaduna highway. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadin Uyi.
Meanwhile, founder of the Leah Sharibu Foundation, Gloria Paldu, has called for more commitment from the government of Nigeria in ensuring the release of Leah Sharibu. Kidnapped 7 years ago, Leah Sharibu is the only remaining victim of the over 100 Gapchi Government Girls Science and Technical School students in Yobe State, northwest Nigeria, that were kidnapped. News Central's Chizoba Anyanwe tells us more in this report.
Leah Sharibu became a household name after the Boko Haram terrorist sect claimed responsibility for her abduction with over 100 other girls from their school in Yobe State in 2018. While in captivity, 5 of the victims lost their lives, while others eventually regained their freedom. Still worried about Leah's inability to join her mates in regaining her freedom, founder of Leah Foundation, Gloria Paldu, in her annual ritual, has called for intensified efforts for the release of Leah Sharibu.
We will never forget Leah, and we will continue to demand from our government to do the needful to secure the release of Leah Sharibu. She represents so many women who are in captivity, abducted for no reason. She's there because she refused to renounce her Christian faith. She's been denied education. She has been denied her life. And so many women like that are wallowing in slavery in the hands of these wicked terrorists. So we demand from you, our government, our leaders, and our president in particular, President Tinubu, please secure the life of Leah Sharibu.
Since prevention, they say, is better than cure, stakeholders in Plateau State say efforts are ongoing to ensure an occurrence doesn't happen in the state.
What we're doing basically is to ensure that we don't wait until things happen. A proper monitoring is one of the key things that we're doing, and that will have to be driven by data. That's what we're working on at the moment. And this is to emphasize the need for communities to be at alert, to own schools in their domain, and to ensure that government is abreast of any form of happenings around them, just to ensure that we have safe schools.
I've been meeting with all critical stakeholders, namely the government, traditional rulers, local government councils, the schools themselves, that's the proprietors of these schools. We have been working with all of them to ensure that the Safe School project is not just a cliche. It is something that has come to stay, and we are all participating in it.
The major worry now is no one knows the whereabouts of Leah Sharibu, but it is hoped that she's alive and returns to her family safely sooner than later. In Plateau for News Central, Chizoba Anyanwe.
We're going to break now, but coming up, Moroccan authorities foils extremist plot, arrested 12 suspects. These and more after the short break. And you're welcome back. Now, Moroccan authorities have arrested 12 terror suspects linked to the Islamic State Sahel province, thwarting what they call a highly dangerous extremist plot. In a coordinated operation, the General Directorate of National Security and the General Directorate for Territorial Surveillance carried out simultaneous arrests across 9 cities. Officials say the 12 Moroccan suspects were allegedly acting under direct orders from a senior Islamic State leader in the Sahel. Although Morocco has largely escaped large-scale terrorist attacks in recent years, security forces regularly announce arrests of suspected extremists to prevent potential threats. Now, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa will officially open the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting in Johannesburg on Thursday. The meeting, held under South Africa's G20 presidency theme of solidarity, equality and sustainability, is part of a series of ministerial gatherings leading to the G20 Leadership Summit in November. Discussions are expected to center on global geopolitical tensions, economic cooperation and diplomatic relations. However, the meeting takes place amid strained ties between Pretoria and Washington. Notably, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has declined to attend, while the European Union has confirmed its participation. Now, in a development tied to ongoing ceasefire negotiations, Hamas has handed over 4 coffins containing the remains of Israeli hostages to the Red Cross in Khan Yunis, southern Gaza. Israeli authorities are set to carry out forensic tests to confirm the identities of the deceased. The handover took place on a staged platform where masked Hamas militants stood in formation as cheering onlookers gathered. 4 black coffins were displayed with a graphic backdrop portraying Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as a bloodied vampire looming over images of the deceased. The move comes amid fragile ceasefire talks with renewed efforts to secure the release of remaining hostages and de-escalate tensions in the region. And for more on this, I'm joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. So what can you tell us about today's events, please?
Well, it seems very reminiscent of previous hostage handovers, and of course those have all been of living hostages. We saw the 4 coffins being released there against a real backdrop of propaganda. There, crowds lined the streets to welcome the coffins essentially back home to Israel as they crossed the border. You saw Israeli troops saluting the coffins, as well as hundreds of people lining the streets with Israeli flags. Now, Hamas has said that the bodies being returned are those of the Bibas family, whose fate has really gripped Israel. 2 young children and a mother there that were kidnapped on October 7th, and of a 4th person, an 84-year-old veteran peace activist by the name of Oded Lipschitz. It said that their bodies are the ones that are being returned. So at the moment, they have been transferred to a centre where their remains will be examined, and then the IDF in Israel will confirm if it is the Bibas family. It has been confirmed already that it is Oded Lipschitz, so his family have been informed that his body is one of the 4 that has been returned.
Okay, well, can you tell us about the Bibas family and why their kidnapping particularly draws so much attention?
Well, there was video of the Bibas family that went viral, and, you know, the family contained one of the youngest, the youngest person to be kidnapped on October 7th. That was 9 months old as he was at the time, Kafir, and his brother Ariel, who was just 4, and of course the mother of the Bibas family as well. They were pictured being kidnapped, the mum holding the 2 children, one of them with a pacifier in his mouth, looked straight into the camera as they were being led away by Hamas. The mother, Shiri, holding her 2 children there. Now, they weren't released by Hamas in November 2023. That's when we had the first ceasefire and the first hostage exchange. They weren't released in those in that ceasefire, excuse me. And then we were told a month later that they'd actually been killed in an Israeli airstrike. Now, that was according to Hamas. Israel say that they won't be able to verify that until those bodies have been returned and they have been examined. Now, the father of the family, Yarden, he was also kidnapped from this particular kibbutz. Now, this kibbutz was very badly affected on October 7th. They were the kibbutz with the most amount of people that were taken. And there were also the kibbutz that the Israeli forces got to last and didn't actually meet Hamas. Hamas had taken all the people by the time Israeli forces got there. But Yarden, the father of the Bibas family, was also kidnapped, but he was released just last week in the last hostage exchange to be told the fate of his family, that he was told that they were presumed dead. Like I said, we do not have that confirmation, that it is the Bibas family, but it's widely thought it is them, and we are waiting that confirmation by Israel.
Well, Afia, I want to say thank you very much for bringing us this information. We'll continue to come to you for more on this. Finally, sports. The Nigeria Football Federation has suspended referees Ridwan Ayeni and Abubakar Jimoh over poor officiating in the NPFL match between Kwara United and Bayelsa United on February 15, 2025. In a letter issued by the NFF Referee and Development Unit, the officials were accused of making decisions that adversely affected the game, including ignoring a clear penalty incident. The assistant referee was also faulted for failing to assist in the situation. The NFF stated that their actions brought the game into disrepute, leading to an indefinite suspension from officiating NPFL matches. And the Confederation of African Football will hold the official draw for the 2024-25 CAF Champions League and Confederations Cup quarterfinals in Doha, Qatar, today. African football legends Wael Gomar, Rabah Majer, Rainford Calabar and Ben Malango will assist with the draw. The Confederations Cup draw begins at 4 p.m. Nigerian time, followed by the Champions League at 6 p.m. Quarterfinal matches will be played over 2 legs, with Champions League ties set for the 1st to the 8th of April and Confederations Cup fixtures scheduled for the 2nd till 9th of April 2025. And that's all the news this hour. But before we go, let's give you another look at some of the major stories. U.S. has denied claims of funding Boko Haram through U.S. aid as Nigerian Senate moves to grill service chiefs on allegations. And 3 persons have died, while 50 have been injured in Zamfara market explosion. We also told you that South Africa is hosting a G20 foreign ministers meeting in Nazareth, Johannesburg. To remember, you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Able TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.